It is the 3rd of October, and this day in Baptist history, our reading is a Fireball Evangelist-Teacher. Our passage of Scripture is 1 Kings chapter 19 and verse 18. Yet I have left me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which hath not kissed him. In former days, when the development of Baptist colleges in America was just beginning, it seemed only logical that those institutions should be directed by Baptist preachers. What a blessed combination of leadership that was offered the student body when the college preacher was also an evangelist. Those prototypes instilled the love of souls in their youthful surrogates, and this resulted in evangelistic ministries that assured Baptist growth in America. Dr. Adil Sherwood was such a mentor. Born in Washington County, New York on October 3, 1791, Sherwood as a youth had the privilege of good educational facilities. He took his undergraduate work at Union College in Schenectady, New York, and then he pursued theological training at Andover Seminary. It will be remembered that Andover Seminary was founded by the conservative Congregationalists because liberalism had already penetrated Harvard. At Andover, Mr. Sherwood studied under the celebrated Dr. Moses Stewart, who had been used of God to eradicate the liberalism that Adoniram Judson had imbibed in his college years. Following his graduation from seminary, Adil Sherwood moved to Savannah, Georgia in 1818. He pastored and simultaneously taught in an academy at Waynesboro during the following winter. His ordination took place in March of 1820, and the famed Jesse Mercer served on the presbytery on that occasion. Reverend Sherwood pastored the Bethlehem Baptist Church near Lexington, Georgia, in 1820 and 1821. In 1821 he was married, but his wife died shortly thereafter. In May of 1824 he was married again to Miss Harriet of Charleston, South Carolina. The next years found the man of God busily engaged in the ministry of evangelism, church planting, and missions. He labored with Reverend Jesse Mercer in establishing the Georgia Baptist Convention in 1822. In 1823, 29, 32, and 1835, he participated in the meetings of the National Triennial Convention. In 1836, Dr. Sherwood was offered the professorship of Bible languages at the Columbian College in Washington, D.C., and it was his effort as general agent of that college that actually saved it from financial disaster. The following years, Reverend Sherwood was tendered the professorship of sacred literature at Mercer University in Georgia. Simultaneously, he pastored in Penfield, and under his leadership, the church flourished greatly. On July 7, 1841, he was elected the first president of the newly formed Shurtleff College in Illinois. It was during his tenure of office at Shurtleff College that Denison University of Granville, Ohio, conferred the Doctor of Divinity degree upon this man of God. In 1852, Dr. Sherwood became pastor in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, where he continued for 5 years until rheumatism compelled him to return to Griffin, Georgia. Accepting a call to head up Marshall College there, he coupled that responsibility with the pastoring of the Baptist church in that city. The Sherwoods lived on a farm in Butts County during the Civil War, and their farm was devastated by the Federal Army in its march through Georgia in 1864. Dr. Sherwood and his family struggled against starvation during that period of time. I have mentioned that Dr. Sherwood was an outstanding example to the young ministerial students who were privileged to study under his direction. The following data will illustrate that fact. I quote, "In the years of 1827 to 35, he was noted as a revivalist. It is said that 14,000 persons were baptized in Georgia in meetings which were the outgrowth of the revival services he began. As a preacher, he was plain, earnest, and evangelical. As a writer, he was terse, forcible, and always to the point. As an educator, he was popular with those whom he taught, but never failed to secure good discipline among his students. None knew him thoroughly, but to esteem and love him. He had a great heart. He was an Israelite in whom there was no guile. Compliments greatly embarrassed him, and he changed the subject as soon as possible when the conversation was about himself. While men of a tithe of his sense and learning blatantly proclaimed their attainments, Dr. Sherwood retired from the public gaze and only came forward when forced out by his brethren. End of quote. Following the Civil War, Dr. Sherwood returned to St. Louis and resided there until his death on August 18, 1879. His lifespan provided him the honor of ministering for 69 years, and during that time he was used of God as few other men. There is a maxim abroad in the land to the effect of, those who can, do, and those who can't, teach. How wonderful when those who can teach. Young men of God, thus trained, witness a personal example of what can be accomplished by a life dedicated and surrendered to doing the will of God. To God be the glory.